Good evening, everyone. You remember chapter 12, the great dragon did his best to stop the male child, to stop the woman. He went up to heaven and waged war, came down here, back down to earth, and was frustrated again. The dragon, of course, is identified as Satan in chapter 12. And in chapter 13, we're going to find out that he's got using two preachers to carry out or to be the instruments of the persecution that we just read about in chapter 12. Because at the last part of chapter 12 says the dragon was enraged with the woman and went off to make war with the rest of her children. That's us. Those who keep the commandments of God and hold to the testimony of Jesus. And in the very next verse says the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore, and then immediately following that, it seems like he summons a beast, which I have identified as civil Rome, if you please, coming up out of the sea. And this beast has 10 horns and 7 heads. Not exactly something you see every day. Sir?
Who's the one that summons? The one.
It doesn't say anybody summons. I think it just, the way it's pictured, looks like the dragon summons the beast. It says that, chapter 12. Yeah. Verse 9. 12:9. And on his heads were blasphemous names, and the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him, that is this beast that comes up out of the sea, his power and his throne and his great authority. So this is henchman number 1 instrument that the dragon is going to use in persecuting God's people. Now, in verse 1, it says that this beast came up out of the sea, and we're going to see that they also arise. In verse 17, they come up out of the earth. We talked about the sea representing the restless nations of humanity, and the earth tells us about that it is a human, it has humanity as its origin, and it has 10 horns and 7 heads, and this is how the dragon was described in chapter 12, verse 3, that we just looked at. Then another sign appeared in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads were 7 diadems. So his instrument is has the same appearance, likeness of the dragon himself, because this beast is a manifestation of the dragon in John's day. That's how he appears. And let me see, I think I've got chapter 12, verse 3 here. I used to have it. No, I don't. Okay. I want to take the 7 heads first. We need to figure that out before we get to the 10 horns. Let's take the 7 heads first and ask this question: who are these 7 heads? Revelation 17, 9 and 10, which I asked everybody to look at, tells us, here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads, he's talking about the same creature, are 7 mountains upon which the woman sits, and that the city of Rome is built on 7 mountains. Everybody agrees to that. And not only are they 7 mountains, but John says they are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. One is, and the other has not yet come, and when he comes, he must remain a little while. and I've already given you what I believe to be these 7 heads that John sees. The first one is the first Roman Emperor, Augustus, and he's listed, by the way, in, I believe it's Luke chapter 2 and verse 1. He was king, emperor, when what happened? When Jesus was born. Okay? Number 2 is Tiberius, who reigned from 14 to 37. He is fallen. He is in the past, as John sees it. Caligula is the 3rd fallen one. Claudius is the 4th fallen one. And Nero is the 5th fallen one. I hope all of you took some time to learn 1st century emperors. Vespasian is my guess is the one that is, as at the present time of John's writing the book. And Titus, who ruled from 79 to 81, is the one who has not yet come and rules 2 years. Destroyed Jerusalem. Yes, this is the same Titus who in AD 70 destroyed Jerusalem completely with his Roman legions. Now, this whole picture of these 7 heads comes from Daniel 7. And we are going to go there and look at the entire chapter of Daniel 7, well, except for a few verses that really don't apply to our study, and look at it. Now, in this sort of a book, in this kind of apocalypse, in this vision we're talking about, heads or horns, both, may be used to stand for kings. You have to look at the context. Now, we know here in chapter 17 that these horns represent kings. Remember, they are kings, 7 kings. Now, Daniel sometimes uses the other idea of horns, so don't let that confuse you. I'll give you an example. Wrong one. Daniel 2:38. Daniel is talking to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and he says, "Wherever the sons of men dwell, of the beasts of the field, of the birds of the sky, he, that is God, has given them into your hand and has caused you to rule over them. You, Nebuchadnezzar, are the head of gold." And of course, this is in that vision of that statue, which we will take a short glance at a little bit later. Now, in chapter 7 that we're going to be looking at here, it says, "After this, Daniel, I kept looking, and behold, another one, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, Greek kings who succeeded Alexander, and dominion was given to it." Now, here in the first 2, he uses heads to represent kings. But in the next chapter, Daniel 8:8 says, "Then the male goat," Alexander the Great in chapter 8, "magnified himself exceedingly, but as soon as he was mighty, the large horn was broken," speaking of the death of Alexander, "and in its place came up 4 conspicuous horns." That's the same 4 that we just looked at in the 4 heads in Daniel 7:6. Alexander's 4 generals who divided his kingdom after Alexander died toward the 4 winds of heaven. But if you'll notice, they are referred to, in this instance by Daniel, as horns. So you always have to check the context, and you can figure out whether these kings are heads or horns. With this in mind, we're going to be looking at 3 pieces of scripture. The first one in Daniel 7, and we're going to look at it all together. And this is in the year 553 BC. 553. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of, by the way, that's about 50 years after Nebuchadnezzar. The vision in Daniel 2. About 50 years later. Daniel saw a dream and visions. Does that remind you of something? Revelation in his mind as he lay on his bed, and then he wrote the dream down and related the following summary of it. Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven, that's God's activity, were stirring up the great sea. What does the sea represent? Humanity. And four great beasts were coming up from the sea. Now, where did our first beast in Revelation 13:2 come from? The sea. Okay? They were different from one another. The first was like a lion, and that's Babylon, and had wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind was also given to it. Now, we won't go into this verse 4, but if you want the background for it, it's interesting. It's in Daniel 4, when Nebuchadnezzar was made to spend 7 seasons out in the pasture, walking on all fours, feeding himself that way because of his arrogance. Verse 5, and behold, another beast, this is beast number 2, which immediately followed Babylon. Another beast, the second one, resembling a bear. We have a leopard and a bear. And it was raised up on one side. That's the dominance of the Persian element over the Medes element. They were united. And 3 ribs, which I have no idea what it means, unless it means just it had a voracious appetite, were in its mouth, between its teeth, and thus they said to it, arise and devour much meat. That is, the ferocious being. After this I kept looking, and behold, another one. This one is like a leopard, representing the kingdoms of Greece, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird, and the beast had also 4 heads. There's that. This is the 3rd time we've run across this representing Greece, talking about Greece. Greek kings after the death of Alexander the Great. And dominion was given to it. So we have looked at 3 of the 4 beasts that Daniel saw. These are not the important ones, though, in the vision, and the one that catches Daniel's attention is the 4th beast. That's the one he's interested in. After this, I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful, terrifying, and extremely strong. And it had large iron teeth, and it devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder. The remainder is the other beasts, okay? With its feet, and it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Kings identified for us in verse 24. We don't have to wonder, because verse 24 tells us. While I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, though a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it, and behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth uttering great boasts. Verse 7 and 8 are going to be key as we look further. Verse 11 and 12. I skipped something. They don't really help us. Then I kept looking because of the sound of the boastful words which the horn was speaking. That was that one that came up. I kept looking until the beast was slain and its body was destroyed and given to the burning fire. That's the lake of fire that it's going to be subject to later. As for the rest of the beasts, the bear, the leopard, and the lion, their dominion was taken away, but an extension of life was granted to them for an appointed period of time. The easiest way to understand that is if you go back to Daniel 2, which looks at the same 4 kingdoms in reverse order. How long does the image stand? It stands until the fourth kingdom is destroyed by that rock cut out of the mountain. So all four kingdoms in the vision or the dream are seen as still standing as a unified whole until the fourth beast is destroyed, and then the entire statue falls over. And that's the same meaning in verse 12. Verse 19. Then I desire to know the exact meaning of not the first, second, or third beast, but this fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with the teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured, crushed, and trampled down the remainder, that is, all the other kingdoms which preceded it, with its feet. And the meaning, what did this mean? David said, of the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, and before which 3 of them fell. Namely, that horn which had eyes and a mouth uttering great boasts, and which were larger in appearance, than its associates. And I think you can get the same idea of the arrogance in the last part of verse 20, back in verse 11. It's a repeat of that thought. Verse 21. I kept looking, and that horn that came up and uprooted 3 of the others was waging war with the saints. Oh, this is the war that's persecuting God's people and overpowering them. You remember in chapter 11 what happened to the 2 witnesses after they preached? Remember, they were killed and left in the street for days and then resurrected. So we saw in chapter 11 the success of the beast, but ultimately its failure. War with the saints and overpowering them, that is, until the Ancient of Days came, that's Christ, and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one, and the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom. We will run across that, saints having the kingdom over and over again. It is a public, fresh demonstration of God's sovereignty. God has always been king. Verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast will be a fourth kingdom on the earth, which will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, talking about the Roman Empire spread, and tread it down and crush it. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom, 10 kings. That's how I knew there were kings earlier. You just read a little further, and I have been amazed, by the way, in this study, and this is a side note, how much I have been able to let the Bible interpret other parts of the Bible for me. Out of these 10 kingdoms, 10 kings will arise. And another will arise after them, and he will be different from the previous ones, and will subdue 3 of those kings. What else will he do? This horn that comes up, this little horn that uproots 3 others. Yeah. He will speak out against the Most High, who is God, and wear down the saints of the Most High, highest one. And he will intend to make alterations in times and in laws, which is God's prerogative. Chapter 7. Anyway, I think it's chapter 7 where it says that that's God's prerogative. And here is the fourth beast trying to, again, to imitate God. He will intend to make alterations in times and in law, and they will be given into his hand, that is, God's people, for how long? Times, and half a time. Persecution and protection. But the court will sit in judgment, God's court, and his dominion will be taken away, annihilated, and destroyed forever. Then all the sovereignty, the dominion, and the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole heaven will be given, to the saints of the Most High, highest one, and his kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all the dominions will serve and obey him. The kingdom, that's the same stone in Daniel 2:44 that was cut out of the mountain that hit the statue on its feet, and the whole statue collapsed, and all those four kingdoms with it. This is the same kingdom that will stand forever in Daniel 2, around verse 44 and verse 45. Okay. This is going to show you in chart form how Daniel presents his fourth beast. And I gave you the verses from Daniel 7 to help you. Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. Those are the same five that we looked at in John's vision. Remember? 6, 7, and 8, Galba, Otto, and Vitellius, who reigned total 3 years between them. I've got their reign 7 months, 3 months, and 8 months. Those are the 3 of the first horns who were pulled out by the roots, by the little horn, Daniel 7 and 8, or before whom 3 fell, Daniel 7:20, we just read it. Number 9 is Vespasian. We've got to come up with 10. Titus and Domitian makes 11. Let's go back to verse 8 of Daniel 7. Let's see, I think I've got it. Okay. He mentions 10 horns, and then we have another one pop up. Right?
Where were we again? Daniel
7 and 8. Yeah. We were presented with 10 horns. Another one pops up, the little horn, gets rid of 3. So we go from 10 to 11 back to 8. Start with 10, another one comes up, 3 fall, brings us back to 8. Domitian is the one who is given credit because he's the major player in this vision and the major player, the major persecutor also in the vision in Revelation chapter 13. You need to look at that some more?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought about if I could,
Just
if our printer's working, I could make copies of these for you.
Just help me so I can see it for a minute.
Remember? Look at verse 8. Let me get out of the way.
And read it again.
While I was contemplating the horns, there was 10 of them. Another one came up. That makes 11. And 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots. It's a first.
Okay, all right.
8.
All right.
And behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth uttering great boasts, which fits perfectly number the king listed on that slide there as number 11.
Right. Okay.
And he was a braggart, a blowhard, arrogant, besides being cruel.
Those are counted in the first year. I'm not counting them.
Why are those 3 left out in John's vision?
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Sure. Any questions? Is everybody answered that?
I got a question.
All right.
When do you think this book was written?
During the reign of Vespasian.
During the fall of Jerusalem.
No, after the fall of Jerusalem. I think, I'm guessing about 76, 77,
Soon after.
70, soon after.
Okay.
And that's one of the lessons that you learn, if I'm correct in this. The 11th horn, according to Daniel 7:8, is the chief personality, he's the one we're interested in, and he's the one he was interested in. He is to get all of our attention, and so Daniel, in the vision, that he sees, Domitian is the one, the 11th horn, the little horn is the one who's given credit for getting rid of the three. That's strictly in the vision. They had no connection other than no earthly connection. It's just, how do I get rid of these three who contributed nothing to the empire? It was a time of chaos. It reminded me of the period of the last few kings of Israel. 2 of these men were assassinated. They were too busy trying to stay alive and do anything. So they are not counted as important at all.
And Vespasian is the one that did away with those 3.
In the vision, yes, he is given the credit. The little horn that comes up is the one that's given credit for uprooting 3. Domitian is number 11, the little horn. No, Domitian.
Yeah, okay.
And he's the persecutor. This means that the beast now has 8 horns. Started off with 10, but now he's only got 8. And the little horn is now number 8. That's Domitian. Yes, we're back to 8. Yes. Here is what we now have in Daniel 7, 7, and 8, after removing the 3 kings. Otto, Galba, and Vitellius. That's actually, it's got Galba first, Otto, and then Vitellius. 6, 7, and 8. Kings number 6, 7, and 8. Joni, sorry.
I am confused a lot, but at this particular juncture, this is what I'm confused over. This is just the vision, okay?
Yeah.
That Domitian, that she was, what did you say, the ruling period that he was in there?
Domitian is the little horn that came up and
Yes,
removed.
I get that.
The
That
3 of them.
is. And he removed 3, those other 3 that you talked about.
Yeah,
Okay, but how can you remove something
From the past.
that was before you?
no, these were in the past.
In the past,
Yeah,
okay, how can you remove something that's in the past? I guess.
Domitian didn't rule until 81 to 96. You can see the 3 that are, I believe the 3 that were uprooted were in the past.
Right.
Yes, so
Right.
how did he
I
have,
understood all of that until you made him go to number 8 and sometime out after it. That's where you lost me. This makes, I understood this because it said after the 10, the 11th one came and ripped out 3 of them. Right. Going back to 8 is the part that there's where you lose me. I understand the math. But the history, I don't understand why that makes him go back to 8.
Because they were not considered important enough to be counted.
Okay, then if that's the,
They stepped out of line, John, and
I
lost.
understand that. I understand that, but he goes back to 8 so that we can bring 2 more in.
No.
Then why does he step back to number 8 then?
We will get to the significance of number 8, the number 8, and his being number 8.
I'll have to trust y'all on that one.
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Yes, this involves a lot of trust in me, doesn't it?
Right.
Which could be very well misplaced.
I would get to that.
Okay, here's what we have after the vision shows up and the other three kings are seen as uprooted. Now,
When you're saying they're uprooted, they're just taken out of history, is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry,
When you're saying they're uprooted, you're saying they're just done away with, or
they're just gotten rid of in the vision,
taken out of history?
in the vision, in the vision, yeah. Because they weren't important. They contributed nothing to the empire, so they are eliminated. And we'll see in just a second how John treats them. Yes, Susan?
Would you go back to the previous slide for just a minute? Okay, so the ones that were dismissed pretty much was number 6, number 7, and number 8.
That's exactly right.
So all you gotta do is take Vespasian, numbers 9, 10, 11, slide them straight up in place of 6, 7, and 8. Now go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that.
Yeah,
Well, that's how he ends up at number 8 then.
Yeah, that's complicated.
Yeah.
That's not the problem.
Yeah, I think John's having a different problem.
A different problem.
He's got a lot of problems. Besides this,
This is just the one right now.
yeah.
This is where she's trying to solve the Sudoku puzzle.
We're gonna get there. Now, John's vision in chapter 13.
Are we going back to that now? I'm not coming back.
No, well, let's just go. Let's just go.
I was asking, do I hold my tongue in place? I'm gonna
You should have, after I mentioned 3 times, we're gonna be looking at Daniel 7, Revelation 13 and Revelation 17, you should have already had it marked, young man.
I'm asking now, where you going?
We're going back to 13, Revelation 13.
But will we go back?
Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
Where am I placing?
Yes, yes. Hold your place.
I'm already reading it.
This is not, this is not one good mark
Okay.
study here, it's about 3 or 4.
All right. Okay, here's the question I'm going to ask. John takes the vision from Daniel as he finds it. After the 3 are removed, John picks it up from there. I guess he just looks back at Daniel and said, you got rid of those 3. They must not be important. So they're not in my vision.
Okay, I could have accepted that to start with.
Okay, but
Never there.
does John speak of 8 heads or kings? The answer is yes. 17, chapter 17. Sorry. I repent. That's where we're going. Revelation 17. And here's the verses, 10 and 11. Remember, these heads are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. You remember that vision and that slide? And when he comes, he must remain a little while. That's Titus. 2 years. He reigned for 2 years. The beast which was and is not is himself also an 8. So John does have 8. He does have 8 heads.
And is one of the
One is of the 7. Yes. My translation has 1 of the 7. 1 is not in there. Irritates me when translations do this and don't tell you. The NIV, ESV, HCSB, and all these others have, he belongs to the 7.
Because the mission is not mentioned in
The what?
the mission.
The mission
The mission is not mentioned in the 7,
in the 7?
in the 7 heads.
No, he is number 8. The mission is number 8.
Right. I mean, as far as,
Well, none of them is mentioned in the Bible.
No, the names are not mentioned in the Bible ever.
Lloyd, did you say Titus is, and the nation is to come? Is that what you said?
The beast which was and is not,
Earlier.
is, let's see, 5 have fallen, 1 is, that is, hold on, let's go back and look at that. There it is. The one that is would be, Vespasian, and the one that is to come would be Titus.
And then there would be another one,
Would,
an eight. Okay.
if you write those, 7 emperors, 8 emperors down, you'll have it. You'll have it. The beast which was and is not, we'll come to that part too, is himself also an 8. This is the little horn that came up in Daniel's vision and got rid of those other 3 kings to get us to the 8. And this, of the 7, John is saying, if you look back at these 7, you'll see him there. He's just like them. He is of them.
And he's a beast.
Yes. He is Satan's representation of the beast that comes up out of the sea in chapter 13, 1 and 2. The sea beast. The sea beast.
That's Domitian.
Ma'am,
The sea beast is Domitian.
is Rome as expressed in Domitian. Persecuting Rome.
Yes.
Persecuting Rome,
Of Rome.
done by the leadership and the orders and the commands of Mr. Domitian.
And he was the worst, wasn't
He was the first emperor that ever instituted empire, public, official policy to persecute God's people. Nero did it, but only in Rome, and only because he had a problem, personal problem he had to deal with, looking to shift blame. But it was never Roman policy to persecute God's people until this guy.
he? Do we know what the mission had against them? Us?
No,
No one ever figured that out.
I haven't run across it yet. Okay, here's a comparison of the two. Daniel, and, oh my goodness.
I'll just look at it, go on. What do you want to say?
All right, this is a comparison of the visions in the 2 places. 1 through 5, really, there they are. 5 are followed, and they're the same in both visions. 6 through 8, Gala, Otto, and Vitellius are the 3 uprooted horns which John ignored. He just didn't bother with them because they had been uprooted back in Daniel's day, so
And they didn't do anything.
no,
Towards Christians, either way, nothing.
they didn't even do anything as far as helping the empire. In fact, it was a time of civil unrest and almost a rebellion. Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian are the same. But you see, Revelation has got Domitian as number 8, and Daniel has him as number 8. If you uproot those 3, you come up from 11, 10, 9, 8.
It'd be nice to get rid of that off.
I'm going to try. I'm going to try. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this,
Just this one? Is that the one everybody wants? Okay. Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to get in trouble.
the women will talk another 15 minutes, but the kids will be coming out sooner than that.
Now is the time to ask questions.
Oh, there are.
This is the time to ask, or the first part of next Wednesday night. We don't need to leave this until, we haven't even touched, by the way, the 10 horns in Revelation are easy. They are easy. It's these 7 heads, or horns, I'm sorry, it's the 10 heads in Revelation that are much easier to dig through than these are.
Do you promise?
Ma'am, yes ma'am, I promise. I promise. I think it was in 1789, but sometimes my brain gets scrambled doing this, trying to figure out, number 1,
And then John asked a question. says, get out of my way.
Yeah. I need
It
to,
says, well, here's the answer, that's just it.
I will move
He's
on
blocking
here
the
next
entire
week.
screen.
Are we ready to go? All right, let's pray. Lord, as we vacate this meeting tonight, we pray that you will be with us, bring us safely home, and bring us back at the next appointed time. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you, and I will try to get copies of that for everybody to have.
There's a fellowship meeting